If the church is hiding something that is not in service to the truth.
Through the media, our main goal is to invite people to the experience of Christ.
I'm not trying to twist anything, I'm trying to hear. If you demonize the other side, you have no capacity to love them. God told me to go to Lithuania.
So hello everyone, we're on the 5th podcast today with Bryanas Gonsalvesas, who was for a long time an author and a writer, and this year decided to become a journalist. So we'll talk about subjectivity, objectivity in journalism and his experience, and does objectivity even exist in journalism at all, right? So in today's biased media landscape, let's just delve directly in the topic. And firstly, I just want to ask, you were an author, a writer, a blogger for a long time.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go into journalism, which is so much heated stuff these days?
Well, I would say it just sort of happened. Kind of a natural progression in a way. So for about 5-6 years, I've been writing a lot of articles, a lot of content on things like euthanasia, abortion, same-sex marriage, the morality of this, morality of that, but all content, of course, defending the Catholic side of things. So we could say it was more apologetical in nature. And then over time, as I started writing these articles, I always wanted to cover more issues as they happened, on the spot. And again, it's hard to explain, but it just sort of entered into the realm of journalism. I never intended for that to happen, but it just sort of happened. And some of the media outlets that had published the opinion pieces and commentary pieces I had written before, they started asking for more journalistic pieces. And because I already had a relationship with these editors, it was just easier to get into journalism.
Yeah. I actually didn't mention it at the beginning, but Brian works at CNA, so Catholic News Agency.
Catholic News Agency based in Washington.
Exactly, and CNA Deutsch and Omnes Magazine in Spain. So he works pretty internationally, so he feels what is the international scene of journalism. But we discussed it before filming, and I really want to ask, that's the most interesting question, how do you define, or does even objectivity exist in journalism, and to what extent can we say that something is objective, right?
Well, I would say it depends on the perspectives that we employ. Now, personally, do I believe that objective journalism exists? No, I don't. Why? Well, we are human beings. We are irrational. We have our biases. We have our experiences and our perspectives. And everyone has a unique experience. Everyone has a unique thing to add. And it's human beings that are writing articles and covering issues and talking about topics. Of course, we can strive towards being objective, but even then, someone is still going to be upset about it. Can I give an example, if that's okay?
Sure.
So a few months ago, I was covering a referendum that Slovenia was going through. And this was about euthanasia, also known as assisted suicide or mercy killing or whatever label you want to apply to it. And so I knew what was going on. There were certain church organizations and civil organizations, and they were trying to prevent the Slovenian government from implementing a pro-euthanasia policy that it was going to implement. And the people voted, they got enough signatures, and they have now stopped euthanasia from being enforced in the country for 1 year. So the referendum was successful. And the second I got news about this, I got in touch with the Archbishop of the country's capital. and I got in touch with the main organizers of this referendum. Now, I write for Catholic news agency. My readers are Catholics. My editors are all Catholics. So obviously, I'm going to cover this issue from a Catholic perspective. Obviously, I'm going to lean on this issue in the sense that I'm against euthanasia. So, I get in touch with the Archbishop's office. I give them a deadline, 48 hours to give a reply. I get a reply in a few hours. Very good. And then I'm still waiting for the organizers of this referendum to get back to me. After 24 hours, I send them a follow-up email, but then I don't get a reply. 48 hours have passed. I get no reply whatsoever. And so I published my article. And my article is very objective. It talks about the who, what, where, why, how, all of that. And of course, it's leaning in support of the referendum, that it's a good thing.
But for example, do you ask the other side, right? Do you ask the contenders what's their opinion on this?
No. For this, it wouldn't, time-wise, it wouldn't be suitable, I would say. Well, time-wise is one aspect, because now I'm waiting for a lot more sources to get back to me. But another aspect is I already know the position of the other side, because they have published it in Slovenian. And few other English sources have picked up on it. And it will be very general criticism that, we have to allow euthanasia in the country and so on and so on. Standard talking points, that's, I don't need to get in touch with them to get a reply on that. And it's quite common, in the field that I'm in, to have an approach like this. So the article is published, and after the article is published, the organizers of the referendum get in touch with me. And they're upset at the article. I don't know why. And they email me at about 6 a.m. Lithuanian time, telling me, we read the article and we didn't like it, and you were just repeating the progressive talking points. And they send email after email. So it's not just one angry email, it's 2-3 angry emails back to back.
Very emotional.
Yeah, very, very emotional. And that too, 6 a.m. Lithuanian time, And I'm surprised that they're acting like this. Because again, my article is talking from the Catholic perspective of things. And the Catholic perspective leans in support of their referendum. And so I send my article to some associates of mine in Slovenia, in Germany, in the US, in Sri Lanka, in Australia, just to get their perspective, because they're from different countries. And they all get back to me and they say, Brian, the article is very objective. There's nothing biased in it. It's a standard Catholic journalistic article covering an issue. And I ask my Slovenian associates, and they say, okay, your article is objective. It's very good. And that's the problem here. So the Slovenian media, the Slovenian Catholic media, the conservative media, again, this is what they're telling me, is that their articles are all very activistic. It's not very objective. In the Slovenian articles, you demonize the other side. And my article, it didn't demonize any side. 90, maybe let's say 80% of the article was talking about things from a Catholic perspective, what was happening, all that. And 20% was just mentioning what criticisms the other side had to balance it out, But that's still 20% versus 80%. And so my Slovenian associates said, well, because you didn't demonize the other side, they're angry at you. And that's just how the media works in Slovenia, from what my associates told me.
So that's interesting, the objectivity they would expect from you, it's totally subjective.
Yeah, it's subjective. Frankly, my perspective is that no matter how good an article or a piece is, someone is going to get upset by it. no matter what. That's just how it is, you know.
Exactly. So probably we can say that there is no such thing as objectivity, right, in journalism, but we can get closer to it, right?
Sure.
In some way. What are your ways of getting closer to objectivity? What do we say? How can we measure it?
I would say it's really listening to what's going on and taking into account both sides. Now, again, I have to keep in mind my audience. So I write for Catholics, I write for other Christians. And because I work for 3 international, Catholic media agencies, I have to support things in the Catholic light. So I'm not going to publish an article in support of abortion. Of course, I don't support abortion myself, But you have to understand your audience, and you still have to keep things in a good, objective sense while leaning into the kind of demographic you're in. So I maintain being objective by really listening, trying to give that listening ear to the other side, to just analyze their perspective. But obviously I'm not going to support it because said perspective goes against the teachings of the Catholic Church.
But it's a very interesting tension, because I think what is the main basic tension of Catholic journalism is between representing the Church and questioning the Church.
Sure.
Because it is always the teaching, right, that we have, and the people who enact it, right? So I think we have to represent the position of the Church, but sometimes, of course, like questioning the Church sounds very, arrogant in a way. But I think it is the tension, right? Because if you only represent what is the Church teaching, then it gets a bit boring, maybe, right? Maybe it's a bit of a PR then, right? But the journalist should also ask questions, right? And sometimes ask questions which are, not so easy to go with, I would say. Yeah, because like a few scandals in Lithuanian Church, and a few orders of Bernardinai really said that we have, to press the Archbishop much more than he is pressed from the Catholic media. So I think it's really the good tension, right? I think it's always about this balance, but it's very contradictory in a way, very tensious in a way. So what do you think about it?
Well, to answer the first question on representing the Church, I really don't believe that journalists represent the Church. We're not clergy, we're not bishops, we're not cardinals, we're not priests. Hence, we do not represent the Church the same way that a clerical individual would. Of course, we are members of the Church, we're part of the Church, we all have Krikščioniška and sutvirtinimas, we all have that. So we are part of the body of the Church, but we do not represent it the same way that a cardinal or a bishop would. Now, what we do, however, is we do communicate what officials of the Church talk about to the wider media. Recently, in September, we had the Shilova conference. It was very good. It was a needed matter. And we had the Apostolic Nuncio to the Baltic States there. We had the Archbishop of Vilnius and Kaunas over there. And I covered that conference for the international media. And of course, I published the article 1 month later because I was still waiting for the translation of everything. But in that time, not a single article existed about that conference abroad. Nothing in Spanish, nothing in German, nothing in English. No one internationally covered it. After I published my article on that conference, it got republished a lot of times. And you had agencies in Australia, New York, Canada, England, Ireland, Scotland, France, Germany, Italy, all reposting what happened. So all of them have cited the words of our archbishops, what they mentioned in that conference. They've mentioned what the Apostolic Nuncio has also mentioned about relativism. And what did I do? Did our archbishops say anything that's so unique that it deserves to be covered abroad? Well, they said what was important. They said what was relevant. They said what the media had to hear. Was it something entirely unique that the church has never heard about before? No.
But what was so gripping then? What was...
It was about essentially relativism, of how it's something that we have to keep in mind in our society, and also regarding what both our archbishops of Vilnius and Kaunas said. They stressed the importance of Šiluva, of the apparition over here, and how it has relevance for Europe, how it's not something that we should forget, the Šiluva Accords, in that sense. This, however, was very interesting to the Catholic media internationally. Of course, few of them do know about Šiluva, but not to that extent.
Okay, maybe it's not so famous.
Yeah, and I think here we do have more duty in publishing more content about the Šiluva declarations. But I'm getting off topic now, so let me go back to your question. So really, what we're doing here is we're communicating to the wider audience what is going on, and as we communicate this issue, you have to be very clear-cut. You have to quote what they're saying very directly. You have to represent it well, and you should not put your own opinions in that. And this is solely for a journalistic article. Now, if the Bishop of Vilnius says something, and I write an article about it for a news agency, I am not going to put my opinions on that. Who am I to do that? No, I am just communicating what the Bishop of Vilnius has said as accurately as possible. Now, if I'm writing an opinion piece or a commentary piece, yeah, I can put my opinion. With regard to this tension of questioning the church, look, to be a Catholic journalist, I believe you should have fidelity and you should have honesty. Fidelity to the church. Fidelity to Christ, fidelity to the truth. Now, if the church is hiding something, that is not in service to the truth.
Exactly.
And we would have to, of course, ask questions, not in a bullying kind of way, not in an aggressive way, but out of a sense of justice, of charity, and service to the truth, service to the Catholics who deserve to know the truth. That does not mean that we bully the church or we criticize the church like we are against it. That does not mean that we lecture the church, that we are above the church. No, we have to still respect authority, but we still have to ask questions in a good way, in a charitable way. You are innocent until you are proven guilty. You know, that sort of thing. A lot of the times I've noticed that you have journalists, they have a hypothesis, they have a story, and they twist the elements, they twist the variables to support their story. You know, so when I'm trying to be very objective, I'm not trying to twist anything, I'm trying to hear.
I think one very famous Lithuanian journalist said that I think that the politician is guilty before it's not proven otherwise, right? So that's totally opposite.
Yeah, it's totally opposite. Because look, if I view someone as guilty, if I view a politician as corrupt, or if I view the church in a particular light, no matter what I find, I'm going to still view them as guilty. You know, and the best thing is, you see this quite often these days in politics. I'm not going to name any figure. I trust our viewers, I trust our audience. They will have their own people in mind. But you have certain politicians, and they can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. And their demographic will support them no matter what. There's a joke. I remember a priest told me this joke some years ago. He told me this. When Lyndon Johnson, one American president, Johnson, when he cheated on his wife, right? The Catholic community said, "Oh, that's terrible. You should repent and seek God and overcome your adultery." Okay. When another politician, I believe this was Tito of Yugoslavia, I can't remember, but one other politician who was Orthodox, when he cheated on his wife, the Catholic community said, that's terrible. You should, repent and try to overcome your adultery. When John F. Kennedy, the Catholic president, cheated on his wife, the Catholic community said, well, it happens. It's okay. Just go to confession and try to come back to God. And I think that kind of underlines a certain mentality of, getting into parties. That if someone does something wrong, but they're on your side, they're a conservative, they're a Catholic, you may be a bit more lenient on them. And that's how things play out in a kind of way, But no, we have to be objective and we have to ask good questions and listen to the truth in that sense. Be open to both sides, listen to the truth.
Yeah, because I think like the general political atmosphere and, societal atmosphere is that we tend to think that the other is guilty before it is proven otherwise. So, but I think it's easier to think that way, right?
Yeah, and I think the media cycle also rewards that kind of stuff. It just gets more clicks, and there is not much space for nuance, I would say, in for-profit media outlets that get money with ad revenue and clicks and all that. You need traffic, and what brings traffic? Taking a side, either right or left, and being very unobjective.
And I think this unobjectivity in a way structures the world that, these are evil ones and these are the good ones.
Yeah.
And that's somehow basic archetypical structure of our reality. And when you do that for others, you make like the worldview much more clear, but not necessarily objective, right? And I think I think the media plays on that. What is also very interesting, there's very challenging line of Ignatius of Loyola. I think it's in the spiritual exercises. I think that's the rule 22, that you have to explain the words of the other you have to explain it with generosity, so to say, and only when you have given the whole power, try with your best effort to explain it in a positive sense. And when you haven't succeeded, when you go, only then you go and talk to them, right? But first you have to make this inner try, right? And I think we don't even try to make this, right? We,
you assume immediately.
Exactly, you assume, right? And that's very good exercise to do that, because people in their nature always seek good, I believe, right? They only understand it in some variations, in different angles. So I think that's very helpful in journalism, to try to assume that the other is seeking good, but maybe only defining it in other words, right?
Yeah, that's quite accurate. And with regard to Saint Ignatius, also Saint Bernard says something very similar in that regard. With regard to that charity dictates we assume the best in others, and we keep assuming the best in them. And even when taking into account things like abortion, you have sides that are for abortion, and you have sides that are against abortion. Now, I'm against abortion. All Catholics should be against abortion, obviously. Does that mean we demonize people who are pro-abortion? From their perspective, and that is their perspective, they are trying to do some good. And from our perspective, we are also trying to do some good. And we both are trying to do good with our own perspectives and experiences and ethical standards. And therein comes the conflict. But that does not mean we demonize the other side. Here's a simple statement. If you demonize the other side, you have no capacity to love them. If you cannot love them, you cannot communicate with them. If you cannot communicate with them, how can you convert them? How can you bring them to the light of the truth? We dismiss them instantly when we demonize them, you know.
Mm-hmm. But I think there's so much demonizing actually, because I see it like, you know, from liberal Catholics, from conservative Catholics, like when you check the Facebook comments, and from many, you know, honored public figures in Lithuania, there's a lot of, you know, us and them, and, you know, like you're this and that. So I think, that would be very good spiritual exercise, so to speak, for the Catholic journalists and media.
Yeah, for sure. And even on this topic of, let's say, like, you know, traditional Catholics, conservative Catholics, or liberal Catholics, these are labels. And I am aware that socially people use these labels, but I disregard them. I don't believe in these labels. To me, only one label matters, and that's Catholic. I'm a Catholic, you're a Catholic, and that's all we need. And the Catholic Church is a hospital for sinners. We all are sinners trying to get closer to Christ. We're not all perfect. And some sinners have tendencies to do this. Other tendencies can be believing in this and believing in that. But we all are trying to draw closer to Christ. Objectively, the Church has doctrines. The Church has dogmas and clear-cut beliefs. And all Catholics should adhere to these beliefs in that sense. And, you know, that being said, if someone does not adhere to that belief, are they a bad Catholic? Are they a sinner in that regard? No, they're just someone who needs a bit more love, who needs a bit more guidance, you know, to bring back into the fold. And this applies to both conservatives and liberals too, to use the terms as well. But I would say a good journalist will not fall into any of these camps. They wouldn't identify that, oh, I'm a liberal Catholic or I'm a conservative Catholic. Why do you have to put a label into that? I mean, I don't see a point. I've met a lot of Catholics who say, oh, I'm a conservative Catholic. And my reaction was always, what do you mean by that? Exactly, yeah. I mean, Catholicism is conservative by its beliefs, by our morals, by what we're supporting. And we also have elements that are a bit more socially progressive with regard to how we take care of the poor and the needy and this and that. And how can you say that you are a conservative Catholic?
I think that's because Catholicism is very much political in Lithuania, as I feel. Because at least in Lithuania, being a Protestant and evangelical would be much less political, or would have fewer associations with politics. Because what I see, well, I never hear that, you know, like evangelical people would say that, you know, I'm liberal evangelical Christian or I'm progressive evangelical Christian. They just consider themselves to be Christians, and actually they're pretty conservative. But I think us Catholics are giving these labels because in Lithuania Catholicism is very close to politics and to the state, you know, because being Lithuanian is being Catholic, right? So I think, well, that's my theory, why Catholicism is either this or either that. And, you know, you cannot even say that I'm only Catholic. You have to be, you know, either progressive or traditionalist. And you can be, you know, you can be light conservative, you can be, you know, a heavy conservative, you can be a traditionalist and so on. But I think my feeling is that this only deepens, right, the divisions and the gaps. And the most important question, how can we overcome it? Because I watched yesterday an interview with Pope Leo in 2012, and he was giving a speech in a conference on new evangelization and the media. And he said that basically through the media, our main goal is to invite people to the experience of Christ, of them meeting the Christ, of changing their lives. So I think the main question is, how can we facilitate it, right? Because we can be objective, subjective, more objective, less objective. But I always try to ask, right, is this article that we're publishing, is this topic that we're covering, is somehow accompanying people and leading them closer to God? How do you see this?
With regard to how we invite people on this experience, how did the apostles invite people to the truth of Christ? How did they go about with their mission? Well, they went and they proclaimed the truth that God had sent the Messiah, that he was crucified, and 3 days later he rose from the dead. The resurrection of Christ, that was the truth, and that's what they proclaimed. And they proclaimed it with zeal in their hearts, and that's how they converted the world, you could say. I think same thing applies if you're a writer, if you're a journalist. We proclaim the truth of what is happening, what the church represents, what the church is talking about. And we affirm human dignity, we affirm human strength, strength under pressure, courage, under a society of fear, It's essentially, I would say, you convey human stories with truth. Stories that affirm human dignity, courage, truth, honesty, what's going on in the world. Like right now, Christians are dying in Nigeria. So what do journalists cover? They cover the objective thing of what's happening, which is Nigerian Christians being martyred in the country. That's the objective side of journalism. But they also cover the human side of journalism. They interview families of these martyrs. They interview people themselves who were tortured in prisons. And they share their stories. They share their stories of how, even under stress and persecution, they did not renounce Christ. And it is by sharing these moral affirming stories, these dignity affirming stories, that you invite people to witness the church, the strength of the church, the grace of God. And really, that is how we invite people to come closer to God in this way. And even the objective things that we report, the words of an archbishop against relativism, that's informative. People should know that. It helps them grow closer to Christ directly or indirectly. Frankly, I would say every sentence we write, every article we publish should indirectly or directly bring someone closer to God. We will never know how our articles have touched someone. That's irrelevant. We will never know it. It's not our job to know who changed their lives after reading our articles. But God knows. God knows the impact of our work, but we just, keep going on with what we do, I would say, actually, a lot of journalists should, be canonized as saints. Because to become a journalist, hear me out, to become a journalist, you kind of become a social martyr, more or less, but you also become a financial martyr.
I really liked when you talked about the truth, right? Because I think there's a lot of ways how to witness to Christ in today's world. And I think even talking about truth, that there is truth and there is objective moral standard, that we can seek the truth and we can even see God, that is, quite a lot, I believe. And sometimes you can write an article and only mention a few of these things and be already that sold, right? Those little things that you can basically basically do. I believe. Yeah, but I really liked your martyr joke. That because I remember like talking about Ateitis portal to one group of people one day. They said, "Oh, you're like very liberal, right?" And the same day, the other group of people says, "You're so conservative. Why are you so conservative, right?" And then we don't even know who we are. Are we like liberal? Are we conservative? We publish this, we publish that, and people just pick some parts of the content and give you labels. But I think that sometimes the mere fact that people are giving you labels is good, because then you're just not stringent. You're not frigid on stuff.
You could say so. I mean, there are some publications, example, let's say America magazine, quite well known, and their editorial stance. You know what you're going to get when you read America magazine. And then there are other publications like Crooks News, You know what you're going to get when you read them. And some of them are much more progressive. Some of them are much more conservative. But they attract their own kind of audience, their own kind of readers, and it works. And these are two massive outlets in that sense. But coming back to what you mentioned, that when you discussed the Ateitis portal with one group, and they said it's liberal, the other group said it's conservative, that shows really that objective journalism isn't really a matter of perspective. You could show the same article to 100 different people, and they will all have their own take and own analysis of it. The only way, really, that you could publish something that's 100% objective is literally a report article that explicitly says who, what, when, why, how, all of that. And after that's conveyed, you have something that says supporters of this, let's say, event or pro-life march say blah, 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 blah. And critics of the pro-life march, they say, chick, 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 chick. And that's it, just publish it. Literal this, that, exact fact-checking. But really, these kind of fact-checking reports. But really, audiences will not read these sort of things. No, audiences, they want a certain perspective. They want either a right perspective or a left perspective. And that's just what gets clicks. And if this was not working, you wouldn't find articles like this. But this is a system that works. The media cycle, and even with the continuing, diminishing attention spans of people don't really want articles with nuance. They say they do, but they don't read such articles. They don't click on them, and they don't do well. And because articles with nuance don't do well, editors are least likely to publish them. It's a matter of time cost. It's an opportunity cost.
But do you think that should a Catholic journalist write those opinion pieces, right? Of course, that works, and what gets clicks, right? Should we do that, and to what extent should we do that?
With regard to opinion pieces, it's a delicate matter, I would say, because again, it's your opinion, and you can be referencing the church, or you could be referencing just your own personal influences. And now it's, again, a subjective matter entirely. Look, it's good to have opinion pieces, but I wouldn't call these news articles. Again, this is strictly from a Catholic perspective, because a Catholic news article is very factual. You're not putting your own opinion in it. The way you write it, the style and the tone and the structure, it's leaning towards an angle, the Catholic angle, but you're not putting your opinion in it. And that's purely a news article. Then you have these analysis articles, commentary and opinion columns. Journalists write that in the Catholic media field. They do put their own opinions there, but they are still supporting the church's point of view. Just the way it's conveyed is different. Maybe they take more philosophical approaches to do it, maybe a historical approach to do it, but the end of the road is the same. You're leading to the church. but just the journey they take the reader on is very different. And that's fine, that's good. Because again, it still supports the church. It still supports the truth in the end. The way you're supporting the truth, it varies, but you are still supporting the truth.
Of course, you can be against the truth.
Yeah, and if you're against the truth, that's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. And I see this all the time in these articles that say the church is not allowing women priests. And you have Catholic journalists writing opinion articles on this topic. And they're telling, and they're phrasing it in this narrative that, oh, the church is not allowing women priests, so it's obvious the church is a sexist. The church is living in medieval times. The church is oppressing women. And that's in an opinion article. Is that serving the truth? Is that serving the church? Have they taken into account the theological aspects of why we will never have women priests? Because we do know that when a priest is on the altar and when he says the words of consecration, he is in the persona of Christ. Christ was a man. You cannot have a woman in persona of Christ. And do they take into account this theological fact? They do not. They take into account the social aspects. These kind of articles I do not like. This kind of journalism I do not like. I do not like this kind of clickbaity, scandal-filled journalism. And you can say, oh, we're just offering a different opinion. Yeah, but it's a stupid opinion, sorry to say. Because why is it about opinion? Because you are going against the church. And you keep going against it because it gets you clicks. And you build an influence for yourself. But you are still undermining the church. You are misleading people. You're telling them that, oh, you're giving this idea that, oh, the church can ordain women priests. It doesn't want to because it's sexist. And that's just nasty, and that should not happen whatsoever. So even for opinion pieces, it should still lead readers back to objectively what the church believes in, what the church's doctrines and dogmas are, what its statements are, you know. So that's what I would say in this regard.
How you got to, of course, we talked about it already, but it's I think interesting to our viewers because you grew up in Dubai, right?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and I grew up in a Catholic family. There are a lot of Catholics in the UAE. And my parents were very good. They sent me to a private British school growing up. So after graduating, I had the chance to go to the UK or to go to the US to do my university studies. But a lot of my classmates, a lot of my friends, everyone was going to London, to Sydney, to New York, to Boston, to Canada, places like Montreal, Quebec, Toronto. And I felt that was too mainstream. I felt that was a bit overrated because all my friends, everyone is, going here and there. And I saw it as, okay, everyone is going here, let me just go the complete opposite direction. And I wanted to go to a place that was Catholic, that had a very good Catholic history, Catholic culture, a lot of religious institutions, nearby. And also a place that was walkable. And if you've been to Dubai, if you've been to the UAE, you know it's not walkable. You need a car to get around. I did not want that. I wanted a walkable place. And after a lot of searching, a lot of praying, God told me to just go to Lithuania. That's how I would describe the whole, process. So. And I came to Lithuania. I loved it very much. I still love it. I'm still trying to learn the language. Aš nekalbu latviškai, bet stengiuosi, But I love the place here, and the people are very kind, very friendly. Before coming to Lithuania, I even Googled, what are the personality of Lithuanians? What are Lithuanians like, Because I'd never met a Lithuanian before. And Google told me Lithuanians are very cold and very direct and very strict. And I was expecting that. 5 years here. Yeah, no, they're not that direct. They're not cold. They're quite friendly, actually. Once you get to know them, they're great people, I'll say. And yeah, I've been here, and I would say this has also helped in my writing, in my journalism. I would say quite a lot, because essentially, and I tell this to people so they understand what it is I do here. So I serve as a regional correspondent for a Catholic news agency, which is an English-speaking agency. And I also work for their German branch. And I'm a correspondent mainly for the Baltic region, but I also report on what's happening in Eastern Europe. So anytime, let's say, a major conference happens in the Baltics, I have to cover it. I have to know what's going on. And then I have to take what's happening and I have to see and figure out, okay, is this relevant for our English speakers? Is my audience of Americans and Germans going to be interested in this? Does it promote Catholic values? Does it affirm the church? Does it give a new perspective on something that's, Catholic? And once I discern and think about that, I, cover the event, I get in touch with local sources, and I publish about it. I'll give you some very practical examples. Recently, Caritas Lithuania via Caritas Vilnius, they launched this program for people addicted to pornography. And I got in touch with Kunigė Kęstutis, who's in charge of the rehabilitation center that Caritas runs. And I had got in touch with Simon, the head of the program for this. And I got in touch with them after they published a Facebook post that the Caritas Vilnius is now offering this program. I got in touch with them. I got the facts of the matter. And I felt it was very relevant for international audiences to know about this. And we published it. Why was it relevant? What made it so unique? What made it unique was that barely any other Caritases had programs to deal with porn addiction. Very, very few of them do. So the fact that the Lithuanian Caritas had a program like this, that they were offering this, was very good.
But that's interesting because, pornography is a very universal problem.
It's a universal problem, exactly. But based on my research, none of the other Caritas groups had something like this. And even my editor, because I'm in the Europe and Asia division, even my editor, he had never heard of this before. Okay. And this was relevant, and we published it. And a lot of groups republished the matter, even in the US. Because that was interesting. And the fact that the Lithuanian Caritas is doing this now tells the other Caritas organizations around the world that, hey, look, we have a Caritas Lithuania doing this. Why don't we do something similar? It's a reference point. They can leverage that to get the funding they need, to get the institutional support that they need. Yeah, exactly. And it's relevant. But for the Lithuanian journalists over here, and this is not a critique on them, most of them, they saw this issue and they were like, okay, įdomu, it's interesting. But they didn't feel it's worth covering, and they may have their own reasons for it. But again, my audience is not Lithuanians, so for my audience, this was interesting. Another example was the appointment of Lithuania's Vice Minister of Justice. Christina.
Yeah. But just one short remark. Sure. I think it's very interesting that you make things interesting. I mean, the things you write about are much more interesting to the international audience than to our inner audience, right?
Of course, that's always the case.
But that's so interesting because people like the stuff that it's not even known in Lithuania get popular abroad, right?
Yeah.
In that way, which is very paradoxical, I believe.
No, it is. That's always the case. A very close friend of mine told me this. I'm just parroting what he said, but I've not fact-checked this, okay? So I don't want to be canceled for saying this or something. But what he told me was, if you look at Poland's history, and most of their influential figures, well, they were born and raised in Lithuania. And there were Lithuanians that had moved to Poland, and they became quite successful in Poland. And if you look at the German business community, a lot of them are Polish, and they couldn't be successful in Poland. They moved to Germany, and they did quite well in Germany. And then you have a lot of Germans in the Netherlands, and they're doing great in the Netherlands, but they never did that well in Germany. And then you have a lot of Dutch in Belgium, and they're doing great in Belgium, but not that good in the Netherlands. And then you have a lot of Belgians in France, and they're doing great in France, but they're not that big in Belgium. And then you have a lot of French people in Spain, and they're not that popular in France, but they're popular in Spain.
Why is that so?
I don't know, but I think it's a kind of bias. I don't know, I'm not an expert in this,
Like, how many people know Shulva conference in Lithuania? And now, like you said, almost, if I'm right, every parish posted that, or
Every American diocese website, published about this, and it also got picked up in the Spanish media, the Italian and French media. It got really, really good coverage. Yeah.
Okay, so much more Americans now know about Shulva conference than Lithuania.
I would certainly hope so, because the article posted was in the context of what the Apostolic Nuncio had mentioned. But of course, it was mentioned that the conference was held in Shulva, aimed at this, organized by these groups. The Shulva Declaration is about so on and so on. So yes, they'll be aware of that. Yeah,
and I think it's probably, of course, because of the nuncio too, right? Because
for sure.
Because I think, we have the guy who edited the renouncement of Pope Benedict XVI. So I mean, when I think it was a year back, there was a conference of Catholic media, and he talked there. So I thought, wow, I think he's the most smart person I ever saw. I mean, when you look at him from the close, I mean, you see that there's like tons of thoughts go inside, and he seems very, I don't know, very. I mean, smart is not that exact word probably, but very, and not even wise, but very, very sharp. I would say, like totally, like a knife a bit.
Oh, that's needed. Yeah.
Yeah, but of course it's needed in that kind of job. So I think it's really cool to have someone like that in Lithuania. And of course that's off topic, but I wonder how he even got to Lithuania, right? His story basically, I think he had to change the old secretary of Benedict XVI for a month or two, just when he was on holiday, and somehow it became a permanent job for him. So okay, we can get to the last and final question.
Sure.
How to become a good Catholic journalist?
I would say it's about, again, listening as well. Listening to what's happening. And then, in a certain sense, trying to listen in places where not many people are listening. Like, there are always stories somewhere. There's always something happening. And it's a matter of really understanding what's going on, trying to analyze it, collect the information about it, and get it published. And to convey why it's relevant for readers to know about these things. And there may always be a different angle to it. Again, the example of Lithuania's Vice Minister of Justice, Kristina. The Lithuanian media said many things about her, which I will not repeat. It's quite common knowledge at this point. But from an international perspective, I see her as a very inspiring figure. You have a mother of 6 children who has been involved in public matters, civil matters, for a very long time as a writer, as a director, and now she's appointed the Vice Minister of Justice. And this goes against the stereotype that people have of, these religious mothers with a lot of children, they're not that smart, they're not that professionally, successful, they can't achieve much, And this is what really appealed to me. And I knew it would appeal to readers abroad as well. And that was the case. People were very taken up by that. They liked that kind of story, and it's factual. And I didn't manipulate anything. I looked into the matter. I looked into her as a person. I approached her to interview her, and I conveyed her experiences and her story abroad. And there are many such cases. There are many kind of articles that can be written if you find a good subject, a good person.
I think what really resonates to me that, Pope Francis said that the church should go where no one goes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So probably you should listen where no one listens, right?
Exactly.
A bit to change that quote of him. Yeah.
And there's even the case, but again, this is just my personal philosophy. It's just me. I always do the opposite of what everyone is doing. Because I know if everyone is doing that, and I also do that, well, nothing's going to happen.
It's going to be boring, right?
Yeah.
That's why you came to Lithuania, right?
Yeah, that's why I came to Lithuania, and that's why I'm covering what's happening here for international audiences. I don't think I'll get a job at LRT or Bernardini.
No, you'll never get it.
No.
No, it's not going
it's
to
not
be.
happening. No, but then it's not my audience, and I'm sure they have way better journalists covering Lithuanian matters in that regard. But I'm covering Lithuanian matters for an international audience. So it's very different aims.
Always going to get a job in a church, right? Either in Lithuania or like in more.
Let's see. I don't know what plans God has for me, but it's always important to say yes to God's call, and it's also important to ask, Lord, what would you have me do? Domine, quid me vis facere? Similar to the call of the prophet Samuel. Lord, here I am. What do you want me to do? And I always tell God, okay, Lord, you tell me what you want me to do. I will do it. I will say yes, but you're buying the tickets. You're providing the accommodation. You're providing for everything else, I will do what you want me to do, but everything else you handle, that's on you. And so far, so good, So far, it's been working out, I would say.
Yeah. I always like to draw on Jesus' spirituality, so it's very, very, very much the same experience. I think was of Saint Ignatius of Loyola. Well, in the room where he converted was an altar of Mary, I believe, and above that was written "Porque non." So why not?
Why not?
So I really like that because he wrote then in his. I think it was Pilgrimage, the book of him, that really struck the chord in him, right? Why not, right?
Why not?
If other people did that, why not me, right? Why not now? Yeah. So with this, one very last final question:
Sure.
What are your plans for upcoming months? What articles are awaiting you? What topics? What themes? What's on your table, so to speak?
In a certain sense, I don't know. But really, Catholic journalism, it's a vocation, I would say. To be a writer, to be a journalist, to be an artist, it's a vocation. And because it's a vocation, you have to constantly listen to God's voice. You have to pray, you have to discern. And I don't know what's going to happen 1 year from now. And that's okay. My only task is, what am I going to do today? And as for that, we'll be having the Galist and Gummis conference in June. this year. So today itself, I'll be sending 2 articles to my editors. Yeah, one is a German article just about the event, what's going on, introducing it to the German audience. And the other one is an interview article with Father Pavlas of Gimė and the Mother Superior of the Congregation of Merciful Jesus in Vilnius, Sister Marcelena. She's Austrian. She's been here for about 3 months now. So these 2 interviews, I'll be writing an entire article on that. Well, I've written. I just need to clarify some bits. I'll submit that. And there'll be few other articles also about covering the conference and what's happening. But at times I also get some assignments from my editors. Few months back in November, I got this assignment to do some fact checking in Indonesia. Apparently there's this...
On that island, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So for the past couple of years now, every year some agency, they report that there is a seminary on the island of Flores in Indonesia, and this seminary ordains 600 priests a year. This one seminary. And so I got in touch with the bishops. I got in touch with the directors of the seminary. I got in touch with a lot of people. I emailed 10 different people just to fact check this.
But that's true, right?
The seminary? No, it doesn't ordain 600 priests a year. No, it ordains 60 priests a year. But it has 600 seminarians in the seminary. So apparently when the article first got published in Indonesian, and then it got republished in English and in other languages, there was a translation issue. So instead of telling, 60 priests a year, it said 600. And I had fact-checked it. I published an article about it. But here's an interesting thing. All the articles about this island mentioned only one seminary. What I found out was this island actually has 10 seminaries. The Augustinians, the Carmelites, the Franciscans, many different orders. And all these seminaries are in the same town. And if you've worked with Indonesia's map, it gets very confusing, and it's just a headache to figure out what is where. But none of these articles mention this. And my article mentions this matter because I had the time and I had to fact check everything. And that's another interesting aspect about being a journalist. Oftentimes, for example, let's say the BBC publishes something. I assure you, I will bet you €1,000,000. You will have 100 other journalists who they take what the BBC published, change a few aspects, add their own, content, and they publish it. But they're not going to the source of the issue. So when I was sent to fact check this thing, I didn't go to any of the other agencies. I directly emailed the bishop, I emailed the archbishop, I emailed the director of the seminary, and I got firsthand information. And so I was able to bring a new light on this topic, which is that this island has 10 other seminaries, and they all are in the same town. And all the other articles don't mention that. So I guess that's also very important in being a journalist. You bring a new light to an issue, and you don't follow what everyone else has done. You try to find a new way, in that sense. But to answer your question, sorry for, off-tracking. This year, I'm really hoping for at least 100 articles on the Ateitis portal, and also about 100 or so articles for Catholic News Agency. So let's see how that goes.
Wow, so that's a lot of work, right?
It's a lot of work, but I think it's a lot of fun, and it's good to have that kind of aim, because even if I fail, maybe I fail by having 80 articles published, which is still not bad, all said and done. So let's see how it goes. You know, I leave it to God, and I leave it the people here to bring good stories to me.
Okay, wow. So you have big plans this year.
Yes, it's good to have big plans. I believe this was Saint Teresa of Avila or Saint Catherine of Siena. She said, "You please God by asking big things of Him," and that's true. It shows you have faith. To ask big things of God, it shows you have faith in God. So I ask very big things from God. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So this was Bryanas Lawrence'as Gonsalvesas, a reporter to the Baltic States by Catholic News Agency Deutsch, and Omnis Magazine. And yeah, it was a pleasure talking
Thank
with
you. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Gotcha.